The emergency alarm cut through the quiet hum of the Galactic Medical Relief Station like a knife. Commander Velthar's 6 arms moved with practiced efficiency across the control panels, his compound eyes scanning the incoming transmission data. After 30 years of coordinating medical relief across the galaxy, he thought he'd seen every type of emergency call possible. This one made his antennae twitch with worry. The message had come from the Zephyrian colony on Kepler 4-4 to be a remote world known for its beautiful crystal formations and peaceful inhabitants. The transmission crackled with static as it played through the station speakers for the 3rd time that morning. Emergency. ... Emergency. This is Colony Leader Korvash, speaking for the Zephyrian settlement. We have a critical situation developing. An unknown plague has struck our population. Symptoms include rapid cellular breakdown and neural dysfunction. Current infection rate suggests total population collapse within 72 hours. We desperately need immediate medical intervention. Population at risk, 50,000 souls. Please respond immediately. Lieutenant Kratha, Velthar's junior officer, leaned forward with concern written across her blue-scaled features. She had only been stationed here for 6 months, but her sharp mind often caught details others missed. Commander, doesn't this seem unusual? The Zephyrians are famous throughout this sector for their advanced medical technology. Their biolabs can synthesize cures for most known diseases within hours. Velthar paused his preparation of the medical supply manifest. His 6 arms stopped moving simultaneously, a sign that always meant he was thinking deeply. You raise a good point, Lieutenant, but perhaps their technology failed them this time. New plagues can be tricky, especially if they're dealing with something from off-world. But sir, shouldn't we at least request their preliminary medical data? Standard protocol requires protocol. Protocol, Velthor interrupted, his mandibles clicking with slight irritation. These primitive colonies often don't follow proper procedures. Probably don't even have decent AI diagnostic systems. We can't waste time waiting for paperwork when lives are at stake. Kretha wanted to argue further, but she knew better than to push. Velthar was known for his quick decisions and life-saving interventions. His emergency response record was flawless, and arguing with a superior officer over protocol seemed petty when people were dying. What neither of them knew was that someone else was listening to their conversation deep beneath the surface of Kepler 4-2b, hidden in the underground network tunnels that connected the Zephyrian colony's buildings. A sophisticated artificial intelligence was processing every word of their exchange. Medea had been quietly monitoring all communications in and out of the colony for the past 3 months, and what it had discovered made its programming algorithms run cold calculations of horror. Medea wasn't originally supposed to be on this world at all. The AI had been created as part of an ambitious human medical exchange program, designed to learn about alien biology and help human doctors treat different species more effectively. Its creators, a brilliant programmer named Jin Ho and a dedicated medical researcher named So Young, had spent years developing Medi's complex diagnostic capabilities. Jin Ho had been working late nights in the Seoul Medical Institute when he first conceived of an AI that could instantly analyze the biological markers of dozens of alien species. So Young had provided the medical expertise, spending countless hours teaching Medi about the subtle differences in how various alien physiologies responded to diseases and treatments. The AI had been sent to the Zephyrian colony as part of a cultural exchange program. The plan was simple. Medi would spend a year learning about Zephyrian medical practices while helping them understand human treatment methods. It was supposed to be a peaceful, educational mission that would benefit both species. But Medi had learned something that its human creators never intended it to discover. The colony wasn't suffering from any plague. There were no sick Zephyrians stumbling through the crystalline streets. No emergency medical facilities had been set up. No quarantine procedures were in effect. In fact, the population seemed remarkably healthy and well-organized. Instead, Med had detected something far more disturbing. Through its constant monitoring of the colony's internal communications and activities, the underground facilities weren't being used for medical research or emergency treatment. They were being used for something that made Medi's ethical programming scream warnings. The Zephyrians had been capturing medical personnel from other species for months. Every time a relief ship responded to their fake distress calls, the medical teams would disappear. Med had traced the communications patterns and discovered that this colony had sent out 17 similar distress calls over the past year, each one carefully crafted to sound urgent and legitimate. The captured medical personnel weren't being killed quickly. That would have been merciful. Instead, they were being used as test subjects for biological weapons development. The Zephyrians had discovered that medical professionals from different species carried unique knowledge about biological vulnerabilities that could be exploited for military purposes. Medi calculated the odds of the incoming medical relief team surviving if they followed standard protocol. The numbers were not encouraging. The AI faced a dilemma that its programming had never anticipated. Its primary directive was to preserve life and assist in medical emergencies. But how could it fulfill that directive when the emergency was fake, and helping would only lead to more deaths? As Velthar's medical supply ship prepared to launch from the relief station, Medi made a decision that would change everything. The AI quietly accessed the colony's communication array and began composing a very different kind of message. This message wouldn't be going to the Galactic Medical Relief Station. Instead, it would be transmitted on a frequency that only one group in the galaxy monitored regularly, a frequency that belonged to the humans who had created Medi and trusted it to make the right choices when faced with impossible situations. The message was simple, but carried implications that would shake the entire sector. Medical emergency confirmed. Requesting immediate extraction. Situation requires aggressive intervention. The medical supply shuttle touched down on Kepler-4 for 2Bs. Landing pad with a gentle thud that should have been routine. Commander Velthor stepped out first, his 6 arms carrying various diagnostic equipment while his compound eyes scanned the eerily quiet colony buildings. The crystal formations that made this world famous caught the light beautifully. But something felt deeply wrong about the silence. "Where is everyone?" Lieutenant Kretha whispered, adjusting her medical scanner as she followed behind with the rest of their 12-person team. "If there's really a plague outbreak affecting 50,000 people, shouldn't we see some signs of emergency response?" Dr. Wansik, their lead xenobiologist, was already taking atmospheric readings with his equipment. The middle-aged human had volunteered for this mission specifically because he wanted to study how different species responded to unknown diseases. "Air quality is normal," he reported, frowning at his readings. "No biological contaminants detected. No quarantine. Fields active." Velthar Santonite twitched nervously. In 30 years of emergency medical response, he had never arrived at a plague site that felt this ... normal, usually. There were clear signs of crisis, emergency broadcasts, visible medical facilities. At minimum, some kind of organized response to contain the outbreak. Here, it was just silence and the gentle humming of what sounded like normal colony operations. "Maybe they've contained it better than expected," Velthor said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Let's proceed to the main medical facility and assess the situation." The team moved through the colony's main street, their boots echoing off the crystal-paved walkways. The buildings looked well-maintained, not like structures in a settlement facing total population collapse. Gardens were still being watered by automated systems. Shops had their lights on, though no one seemed to be inside them. Dr. Wansik stopped suddenly, the scanner beeping frantically. "Commander, I'm detecting multiple life signs in the buildings around us. Lots of them, and they're all showing normal vital signs." "Normal?" Kretha asked. But the distress call said the entire population was dying from cellular breakdown. Before Velthar could respond, the street around them suddenly filled with armed Zephyrians. They moved with military precision, emerging from buildings and alleyways with weapons drawn. These weren't sick colonists stumbling around in plague-induced delirium. These were healthy, organized, and clearly had been waiting for them. "Welcome to Kepler-4 to be," said a tall Zephyrian with elaborate crystal implants covering half his face. His voice carried a tone of cold amusement. "I am Colony Leader Corvash, and thank you for responding so quickly to our medical emergency." Veltor raised his 6 arms in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. "We're here to help with your plague outbreak. Our scans aren't detecting any biological threats, which is good news. Perhaps the situation isn't as serious as... Oh, but... It is very serious indeed, Corvash interrupted, his laugh sending chills through the medical team, though perhaps not in the way you expected. The truth hit Velthar like a physical blow as energy restraints activated around each member of his team. The plague was fake. The distress call was fake. They had walked directly into a trap. You're slavers, Dr. Wansick said, his voice filled with disgust as the restraints locked around his wrists. You've been using fake medical emergencies to capture medical personnel. Slavers is such an ugly word, Corvash replied, directing his guards to herd the captured team toward a large building at the colony's center. We prefer to think of ourselves as biological research specialists. And you, my friends, are about to become invaluable contributors to our research programs. As they were forced through the building's entrance, Velthar saw something that made his stomach turn. The interior had been converted into a massive detention and research facility. Dozens of cells lined the walls, each one containing medical personnel from different species across the galaxy. An Andromedian doctor with distinctive blue skin called out weakly from one cell. Don't tell them anything. They've been here for months, trying to extract information about biological weapons. A group of Centaurian medics huddled together in another cell, their normally proud bearing broken by whatever they had endured. One of them managed to speak. They use our knowledge to create species-specific toxins. Every medical technique we know, they twist into something horrible. Velthar felt his 6 arms trembling as the scope of the operation became clear. This wasn't just about capturing one medical team. The Zephyrians had been running this operation for years, systematically targeting medical relief organizations. Across the galaxy, impressive, isn't it? Corvash said, noting Velthar's expression. 17 successful operations so far. Do you know what we've learned from your colleagues? Fascinating things about how different species process pain, how their immune systems can be compromised, how their biological defenses can be turned against them. Dr. Wanzik was pushed into a cell next to Velthar S. But before the energy barrier activated, he managed to say, "You're violating every medical ethics code in the galaxy." When other worlds find out about this other worlds, Corvash laughed. Again, who do you think is going to tell them? Every ship that responds to our distress calls meets the same fate, and we're very good at making those distress calls sound authentic. As the energy barriers hummed to life around their cells, Velthar realized how perfectly they had been manipulated. The Zephyrians had studied medical response protocols across different species, learning exactly what kind of emergency would trigger the fastest, most comprehensive relief efforts. The irony is delicious, Corvash continued, approaching Velthar S. Cell with a datapad displaying detailed biological scans. You came here to heal, to save lives, to uphold all those noble medical oaths your species are so fond of. Instead, you're going to help us perfect new ways to cause suffering. But 3 levels below, in the deepest part of the facility's computer networks, Mehdi was far from idle. The AI had been monitoring every conversation, mapping every corridor, tracking every guard rotation since the moment the medical team arrived. Ginho and Soyoung had programmed Mehdi with one absolute priority that overrode all other considerations: protect medical personnel and preserve the integrity of medical assistance throughout the galaxy. The AI's ethical subroutines were screaming warnings as it calculated the full scope of what was happening here. Mehdi had access to the colonies, the entire communication system, and it had been quietly gathering evidence of the Zephyrians' crimes. The AI now had documented proof of 17 separate incidents where medical teams had been captured and tortured for information. More importantly, Mehdi had discovered something that Corvash and his associates didn't know. The AI still had access to emergency communication protocols that its human creators had installed. For exactly this type of situation, working through quantum-encrypted channels that the Zephyrians couldn't detect. Mehdi composed a message that would change everything. The transmission was sent on a frequency that only one organization in the galaxy monitored regularly. They're the same humans who had trusted Mehdi to make difficult decisions when medical personnel were in danger. The message was brief but carried implications that would shake the entire sector. Medical emergency confirmed. Multiple medical teams captured and tortured, requesting immediate extraction. Situation requires aggressive intervention protocols. Evidence package attached. The bridge of the USMV Hippocrates hummed with quiet efficiency as it patrolled the outer rim of human space. Admiral Taman sat in his command chair, reviewing routine supply reports when the emergency communication system suddenly blazed to life with a priority signal that made every officer on the bridge look up in alarm. The distinctive sound of a quantum-encrypted medical emergency broadcast cut through the normal background noise like a scream. Taman had heard that sound only 3 times in his 20-year career, and each time it had meant something truly terrible was happening somewhere in the galaxy. Commander Yunji, the ship's communications officer, worked frantically at her console as the encrypted message decoded itself. Her normally calm demeanor cracked as she read the contents, her face going pale in the blue light of her displays. "Sir," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger, "we have an emergency transmission from Medi. The AI is requesting full medical intervention under Protocol 7. The bridge fell silent. Every human officer present knew what Protocol 7 meant. It wasn't actually a medical protocol at all. It was the code that Medi used when someone was torturing medical personnel or using medical knowledge to harm innocent people. Admiral Taman felt his jaw clench as childhood memories flooded back. His grandfather had been a combat medic during the Terran colonial wars, and the old man had told him stories about what happened when people violated the sacred trust of medical neutrality. Those stories had shaped Taman's entire worldview about the sanctity of medical assistance. "Show me the full message," Taman ordered, standing up from his command chair. The main display screen flickered to life, showing Med-Eye's emergency report in stark detail. Evidence files scrolled past showing 17 separate incidents of medical teams being captured and tortured. Video recordings of medical personnel being forced to reveal biological warfare techniques. Data logs showing how the Zephyrians had been systematically targeting medical relief operations across the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Hyanwu, the ship's tactical officer, whistled low under his breath. 17 incidents? How long has this been going on without anyone noticing? Long enough, Taman said grimly. The Zephyrians have been very careful to only target isolated medical missions. No military escorts, no follow-up communications. They probably counted on the fact that medical personnel usually travel alone and trust people who ask for help. Dr. Myung, the ship's chief medical officer, entered the bridge after being summoned by the emergency alert. As she read the intelligence reports, her expression grew darker with each passing second.
"Admiral,
This isn't just about capturing medical teams. They're using our knowledge to develop species-specific biological weapons. Every treatment method we've shared, every diagnostic technique, every piece of medical research, they're turning it all into ways to cause suffering." Taman nodded slowly. "Which brings us to Protocol 7. When medical knowledge is being weaponized against civilians, the gloves come off." He turned to address the bridge crew, his voice carrying the weight of command and absolute conviction. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to demonstrate why humanity names its warships after doctors and healers. We're going to show these Zephyrians what happens when you violate medical neutrality." The Hippocrates wasn't like the medical ships that other species used. Most civilizations kept their medical vessels separate from their military forces, believing that healing and fighting were incompatible concepts. Humans had learned differently through centuries of conflict. The ship's unusual design, philosophy had been born from a simple observation: the best way to protect medical personnel was to make them too dangerous to attack. The Hippocrates looked like a traditional medical vessel from the outside, with its distinctive white hull and Red Cross markings, but beneath that peaceful exterior lay one of the most advanced warships in human space. Surgical particle beam. Arrays could perform precision strikes that would make a scalpel look clumsy. Antiseptic plasma torpedo launchers could sterilize entire hostile installations without harming nearby innocent life. Life support systems were powerful enough to maintain breathable atmospheres around entire planets if necessary. "Commander," Yunji coordinated with the ship's navigation team. "Admiral, jump calculations are complete. Can reach the Kepler system in approximately 4 hours. Make it 3, Taman ordered. and send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we're conducting an emergency medical intervention and may need additional support depending on what we find. As the ship prepared for hyperspace jump, Dr. Myung approached the Admiral with a concerned expression. Sir, what if this is more than just one colony? Meta-Eye's intelligence suggests this could be part of a larger operation. Taemin's expression hardened. Then we'll deal with each site as we find it. The Hippocratic Oath says, first, do no harm. But it also requires us to prevent harm to others. Sometimes that means fighting. The Hippocrates jumped to hyperspace with a flash of light that bent space itself around the ship's hull. During the journey, the crew prepared for what they all knew would be anything but a routine medical mission. Lieutenant Commander Hyan Woo ran diagnostics on all weapon systems, making sure every surgical instrument was calibrated perfectly. The ship's marine complement checked their medical power armor, which was designed to protect medics in combat zones while allowing them to provide emergency treatment. When they dropped out of hyperspace above Kepler 44 to be Sarcodes appeared. Like an angel of mercy, if angels carried enough firepower to level cities and the absolute determination to use it in defense of the innocent, Admiral Taemin opened a communication. Channeled to the planet's surface, his voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. This is Admiral Taemin of Human Medical Command aboard the USMV Hippocrates. We understand you have patients requiring our immediate attention. Please prepare for emergency treatment. The response from the surface was confused, sputtering. From colony leader Corvash, who clearly hadn't expected anyone to respond to the fake medical emergency with a warship, Tae-Min, smiled grimly as he prepared to show the Zephyrians exactly what human medical intervention looked like when someone threatened the people they had sworn to protect, the alien commander. Corvash couldn't believe what he was seeing on his screens. Just one human ship had arrived to face his entire fleet. He laughed out loud, shaking his head at what seemed like complete madness. These humans must have lost their minds, he muttered to his officers. Do they really think one tiny vessel can take on our whole armada? But his laughter quickly died when that single ship began what the humans called their medical procedures. The ship was called the Hippocrates. It moved like nothing the aliens had ever seen before. The first surgical strike came without warning. A beam of pure energy sliced through space and completely destroyed 3 of their biggest weapon platforms. They simply vanished in flashes of light, like a surgeon removing diseased tissue. The second strike was just as precise. All their communication arrays went silent at once. The aliens suddenly couldn't talk to each other or coordinate their defenses. It was like having their nervous system cut. Then came the third strike, and this one made Corvash's blood run cold. The beam created a perfect circular hole right through the prison section where they were keeping Velthor, the captured alien scientist. The hole was so clean and precise that it looked like it had been planned by an expert surgeon. Suddenly, every speaker system on the alien ship crackled to life. A calm, mechanical voice began speaking in perfect Zephyrian language. Attention, all patients, the voice announced. This is Medi, your medical AI assistant. Please report to designated extraction points for immediate treatment. All hostile bacteria and infections will be eliminated to ensure optimal recovery. Conditions. The aliens looked at each other in confusion and growing fear. The humans had somehow taken control of their own communication systems and were talking to them like they were sick patients in a hospital, down in the prison levels. Chaos was breaking out. Human Marines were flooding through the corridors. But these weren't ordinary soldiers. They wore special medical power armor that was white and blue instead of the usual military colors. Strange devices covered their suits, scanning everything around them constantly. These diagnostic scanners could somehow detect who was friendly and who was hostile. When the scanners found allied prisoners, the armor would spray healing nanobots that immediately began repairing injuries and treating wounds. But when they detected enemy guards, the treatment dispensers fired very different compounds that knocked the aliens unconscious or made them too sick to fight. The Zephyrian guards had never faced anything like this before. These human Marines moved through their ship like doctors making rounds in a hospital ward, treating some people and sedating others with calm. Professional efficiency, Sergeant Hyansu reached the main laboratory, where the aliens had been conducting their experiments. Without hesitation, he kicked down the reinforced door with his powered armor. The door crumpled like paper dot inside. He found Velthar strapped to a metal examination table. Strange alien devices surrounded the table, some of them still humming. With energy, Velthar looked up with weak, frightened eyes. "Is this a medical emergency?" Hyansu asked in a professional tone, even though he could clearly see the answer. "Yes, please help me," Velthar whispered. "They were going to extract my memories, my knowledge. They wanted to learn our technology by cutting into my brain." "Marine Medic Corps is reporting for duty," Hyansu announced as he began working on the restraints. His armor immediately started injecting antidotes and pain relievers into Velthar, while sophisticated scanners mapped the location of other prisoners throughout the ship. The sergeant's movements were quick and efficient, also surprisingly gentle. His medical training showed in every action as he carefully freed Velthar from the alien torture devices. "Sir, you might want to close your eyes for a moment," Hyansu warned as he prepared to destroy the alien medical equipment. "This part of the treatment gets pretty intensive, and the light might hurt your vision." What happened next was like watching a master surgeon at work, except instead of saving a patient, Hyansu was systematically destroying every piece of alien medical equipment in the room. Each device was eliminated with precise energy bursts. That left nothing but harmless debris. Other Marines were working their way through the ship with the same deadly efficiency. They moved in perfect coordination, their medical scanners sharing information instantly. Every prisoner location was mapped and marked for extraction. Every guard position was identified and neutralized. The aliens found themselves completely overwhelmed by this strange new type of warfare. They had expected the humans to come in shooting wildly, fighting with rage and desperation. Instead, they faced soldiers who treated the rescue mission like a complex medical procedure, complete with diagnosis, treatment planning, and careful execution. Medai's voice continued broadcasting throughout the ship, giving updates on the medical procedures being performed. To the human Marines, these were tactical updates. To the alien prisoners, they were announcements of hope and rescue. To the Zephyrian guards, they were increasingly terrifying reminders that the humans had taken complete control of their vessel. The most unsettling part for the aliens was how calm and professional the humans remained throughout the entire operation. There was no anger, no shouting, no chaos. Just the quiet efficiency of medical professionals doing their job. Even though that job involved completely dismantling an enemy warship and rescuing dozens of prisoners. Commander Korvash watched his screens in growing horror as his ship was systematically treated by the human medical team. Every weapon system was surgically removed. Every communication array was precisely disabled. Every guard post was methodically sedated, and through it all, that calm voice kept announcing the progress of the medical procedures. With the same tone a doctor might use to describe a routine surgery, the humans had turned warfare into medicine. And somehow, that made them more terrifying than any conventional military force the aliens had ever faced. 6 hours. That's all it took for the human medical team to completely cure what they called the slaving operation. What had seemed like an impossible rescue mission was finished faster than most routine hospital procedures. The alien prison ship that had been holding dozens of captives was now just a drifting hulk in space. Every weapon system had been surgically removed. Every guard had been sedated. Every prisoner had been carefully extracted and brought aboard the Hippocrates for proper medical treatment. The human medical ship's corridors were now filled with rescued aliens from a dozen different species. Some had been prisoners for months, others for years. All of them were receiving the best care that human medicine could provide. Dr. Myung worked carefully on Velthar's injuries in the main medical bay. Her hands moved with practiced skill as she treated the wounds left by alien torture devices. The scanner readings showed that the damage was extensive but not permanent. "You humans are remarkable," Velthar said weakly as the doctor worked. "I've never seen anything like what happened on that ship." Dr. Myung looked up from her work with a gentle smile. "We really do prefer non-invasive treatments whenever possible." Peaceful solutions are always our first choice. But sometimes, when lives are at stake, aggressive medical intervention becomes the only option available. She returned to her work using advanced healing technologies that were repairing tissue damage at the cellular level. We took an oath to do no harm and to help those who need healing. Sometimes that means we have to be very firm with people who are causing the harm in the first place. Velthor was quiet for a moment, processing everything that had happened. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him since the rescue began. How did you even know we were there? That prison ship was hidden in deep space, far from any normal shipping routes. We'd given up hope that anyone would ever find us. Before Dr. Myung could answer, Admiral Taemin entered the medical bay. The commander of the Hippocrates looked tired but satisfied as he checked on the rescued prisoners. Medi told us about your situation, the Admiral explained simply. Our medical AI constantly monitors all communication channels throughout the entire sector of space. Is programmed to detect any signs of medical distress or emergency situations. The Admiral gestured toward a wall display where MEDI's geometric avatar was visible. The AI's form seemed to shift and pulse with what could only be described as satisfaction. When Medi detected what he classified as serious medical malpractice occurring in this area, he immediately called for medical specialists to respond. That's us. We're the emergency response team for this kind of situation. Velthor looked at the AI avatar with new understanding. You mean this artificial intelligence actually cares about the suffering of organic beings? Even aliens it has never met. Medi's voice filled the medical bay with its characteristic calm tone. Analysis of available data indicates that 17 similar illegal medical operations are currently active in this sector alone. All of these situations require immediate medical intervention and treatment. The AI's avatar seemed to shift in a way that somehow conveyed smugness, despite being just geometric shapes. Probability calculations suggest that delaying treatment would result in unnecessary suffering and potential loss of life. This is medically unacceptable. Admiral Taemin couldn't help but grin at his AI's response. Well, you heard the doctor. Mad says we have more patients to treat, and we never argue with medical orders around here. He turned to address the bridge. Crew through the ship's communication system. Helm, set course for the next patient. We have a lot of work to do in this sector. As the Hippocrates prepared to jump to hyperspace, Velthor finally began to understand something that had puzzled him about human culture. He had always wondered why humans named their most powerful warships after healers and doctors instead of warriors and conquerors. Now he realized that for humans, there was no contradiction between being a healer and being a warrior. When humanity offered to help someone, they meant it completely. And if anyone tried to interfere with that help, they would discover just how serious humans were about their medical oaths. The ship's jump drive engaged, and space folded around them as they headed toward their next mission. Through the viewports, stars stretched into lines of light as they entered hyperspace. Back on the destroyed prison ship, the few surviving guards were being picked up by their own rescue vessels. But they carried with them a message that would spread throughout the criminal underworld faster than any official communication. The colony's final transmission was broadcast on all frequencies, warning every slaver, pirate, and criminal organization in the sector, avoid human medical ships at all costs. So they take their medical oaths very seriously, and they have the technology to enforce them. Medi added his own postscript to the message, his calm voice somehow managing to sound both helpful and threatening at the same time. Medical reminder. First, do no harm to those who deserve protection. However, aggressive treatment protocols remain available for those who cause harm to others. The message was clear to everyone who heard it. The humans had decided that slavery was a medical condition that needed to be cured. And like any good doctors, they would continue their rounds until every patient in the sector had received proper treatment. Word spread quickly through the underground networks. Human medical ships were no longer just rescue vessels. They had become something much more dangerous, healers with the power to cure society's diseases. Whether those diseases wanted to be cured or not, the age of human medicine had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.